Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Shock Talk. It's good to see everyone again, getting ready for the holiday season. I got Shane here with me, and we got a couple of fresh faces sitting at the table today. I tried my best to beard up, but I cannot match Ryan's beard over there. We have Ryan and Miguel, two guys that probably work the hardest in this company. Their job is incredible, and we're going to take some time today to hear from them what really goes into an application-specific fitment on one of these vehicles. I mean, it's amazing the depths that these guys go through. So we'll start with you, Ryan. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up at BILSTEIN.
Well, let's see here. I come from the automotive restoration world. Grew up with a family business that manufactures and restores classic Corvette parts. And
yeah, I actually used to buy some of those parts from you when
that's right.
I was doing my deal. So
yeah, so did that for a long time, and then kind of bounced around. Went from a little bit of collision refinishing work, doing heavy hits for a while. Did a little bit of RVs and trailers, and then motorcycles, ATVs, UTVs, and jet skis. And then came back to BILSTEIN.
And now BILSTEIN.
And kind of an odd way I wound up with BILSTEIN, but I've known about the company, of course, in the Corvette racing world. They've built a name.
Yeah,
they were still on the original Corvette. So let's see here. I came about that because through a roundabout way, I used to rock climb with several employees that still work for the company.
Right.
So found out there was an opportunity open and put in an application, and my background fit. So.
And how long have you been with BILSTEIN?
Well, I was with the company for about 2 years. Moved to Idaho for a while, and then now I've been with us 5 years.
So a total of 7.
Starting like last week, 5 years.
A grand total of 7 with the on and off Idaho trip, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So how about you, Miguel? You're pretty new with us.
Pretty new, yeah. It's been just a bit over a year.
Yeah. Can we call you Junior?
Sure.
Since you're sitting in Junior's chair, there you go. No, I'm sorry to cut you off. Go on.
No, same. Kind of, it's like if you're in the automotive industry, you're kind of looking for places that, fit the interest and, your lifestyle and all that stuff. And that's kind of how I got into BILSTEIN. Actually, I was referred by one of the good engineers here at BILSTEIN. He referred me. They were looking for new talent. And that's how I got here, pretty much.
Nice.
But yeah, ever since a kid, pretty much the desert was my backyard, and it's been a lifestyle, pretty much,
Yeah, it is.
Industry, off-road, and all that stuff.
It's the place where enthusiasts come to work.
Now let's explain what roles you guys do here at BILSTEIN.
I didn't give you a chance to say it because I don't want to misconstrue this role because it's so giant.
It's actually very, very. I think it's the most.
It is the most important. So
product management.
Ryan, you start. Describe the role. Describe
the
title.
So the title would be Ride Development Technician, or officially Vehicle Application Technician.
Right.
We work under the Ride and Handling Department, which is a division of engineering. And our primary goal is the actual direct hands-on work with all of our applications, from our crossover vehicles, fitment of German products on U.S. market, as well as all of our OE direct fitment products. And
this is a huge process. I don't think that people understand. So it starts with vehicle acquisition, right?
Oh yeah.
So if let's just say we take a Toyota Tacoma,
which we're working on right now.
Tell me, Ryan, is probably on your sheet, your sheet there. How many different versions of the Toyota Tacoma are we going to fit on?
Okay, well, in variations, you've got a double cab and an extended cab, and across that, there's the hybrid engine, and then the current motor.
Each of these takes a different process, right?
Each one, we tend to try to make one product that fits across them.
Right, common.
But you're dealing with different weights, different frame configurations, different clearances, And so you have to check all of them in order
It's
to
your guys'
verify.
job to confirm whether that one shock is going to fit all 7 variations of this truck, right?
Exactly.
And if it doesn't, now how do we make it work for the different variations? And Shane's very familiar with this as well. He's constantly going, hey guys, what about this one? What about that one? So.
Yeah, one of the things is we make like ride height adjustable or leveling products, and like the ride heights, especially for Toyota people, they get very angry if your ride height, lift height is not advertised properly.
Right. So the installation manual is off by a little bit. And
they get very, very angry.
Yeah, I own a Toyota, and I'm very, very angry when it doesn't match what it says it's supposed to lift my truck.
They also get very angry if the car is leaning.
Yes, the old Toyota lean.
Toyota.
So,
Yep.
But they lean.
Yeah, they lean
that's
that
a
way from the
Toyota
factory. Yeah, I
that's
don't know why. Maybe you guys know why. Why did they build that in?
I've always
Wondered,
been
right?
kind of unclear on that one.
Does it corner better if one side is higher than the other in the
Nah,
front?
it's
Or
not really that.
no?
I've thrown out the idea of maybe it's for easier climbing in and out for the driver.
driver,
But
yeah,
more than
'cause it is
likely,
always
it's,
lower on the
it's like a
driver's
road crown adjustment.
Yeah.
So you're sitting level if you're on a road
Oh,
crown.
that kind of makes sense, but
It's for the wife to get easier on the passengers.
yeah. Well, is it higher on the passenger side or on the driver's
Well,
side?
typically it's the driver's side.
That's higher.
That's lower.
Lower.
Higher, no?
Higher?
Lower.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Because when we stagger our circlips, we always stagger higher on the left.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So it's the left that's usually the one leaning.
Right.
I've had them come in leaning the complete opposite direction.
Yeah.
And then if they have KDSS system, it can go all over the place. That car won't settle the same way twice.
Oh yeah. Drive it in and out of the garage once or twice, and the ride height changes like half an inch per side. So
anyways, on the instruction sheet, depending on the motor, and the new Tacoma, it's got a motor, but it also has a hybrid, which
Right.
has a bunch of batteries. And you've got a 4-door, and you got an extra cab. We have to like bring those vehicles in, and for our like 5100 ride height adjustable or the 6112, we have to have every motor, every cab configuration. So that
Tested.
we tell you on the instruction sheet, if you've got this combination, you're going to get this lift.
yep.
If you have this combination, you're going to get this lift that might be slightly different, so that everybody gets the correct advertised price.
Correct.
Or no, correct advertised lift
height. Yeah. And that's another thing that we didn't even consider is, so not only are there 7 variations of the truck, but there's also 4 or 5 different products that these guys need to check.
Yes.
It's just crazy. I mean, so how does a typical vehicle acquisition go? So where does Bilstein get these vehicles that we do this testing on?
Well, we have a couple different sources. Our preferred method is to use customer vehicles where they loan it to us. It works for both parties because we give them free shocks
For
do
letting
the
us borrow
install.
their truck? Yeah.
And we also make sure that they have a vehicle to drive while we're using it. We try to work with them as much as possible. But usually it's best in the Southern California region, but I have gone as far as Phoenix or Vegas to pick up a vehicle if we can make it work. Or we've had people drive down from Northern California just to drop off their vehicle because they want the
Wow.
opportunity.
Wow.
So I prefer that method, but we also have other methods. Some companies we contract with to use their vehicle. We also often have like an OE contract where we're working with
Right.
an OE supplier and they provide us with a vehicle for that development. And a couple local shops who, if they have customers or they own the vehicle, they'll allow us
Let us
access
use
to
it.
it.
And every now and then we'll drive around running errands and say, hey, we need that vehicle.
Yeah, leave a note. Yeah.
leave a note if
Yeah.
it's in a parking lot or
Right.
like, hey. bring your-
Really hands-on
bring
type
that
work.
down.
Hey, we need that. Bring it by the shop.
Yeah,
We'll
we've
work
done
with
that a
you on
couple
that.
I'm always carrying my business cards
Yeah.
and we've got flyers. And if we see something we're looking for, then we'll at least
Yeah.
stop and talk to them and see if they'd be interested.
So once we have the vehicle, Miguel, where does the process start? So what's the engineering, what's the document, or what are the things that you start with once you get the car in and on the rack?
Right. Well, on my end, over here, senior application technician Ryan, he's the one that keeps track of mostly what's going to happen, like what product we're going to test fit, and all that stuff. And I'm kind of just going with the flow at this point. We get the vehicle, we make sure that, we take a bunch of photos, get the VIN number, get wheel, tire sizes, make sure that the vehicle is stock. Sometimes we
No modifications.
Somebody will loan a vehicle and, you know, it's got bigger tires or something. So we got to make sure that everything's going to fit to our specific standards that we have to use. We'll get ride heights, you know, wheel to fender.
Start doing all the measuring.
Measuring, all the OE measurements. We'll get the alignment printed out, make sure the car is in specs from as OE, make sure the gas tank's full.
Right.
All those little details is that matter.
Before you even put a wrench on the car.
Even putting a wrench on the car.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's the main thing in regards to documentation.
Right.
And then from there, I mean, we got, depending on what the shock package is.
Right.
If it's the 5100s, 4600s, 8112s, which that's pretty fun.
Right.
That's
because there's a lot of different things, moving things on that.
Yeah, and sometimes we're using the same vehicle, like 2 or 3 different projects with the same vehicle, so it gets pretty broad at some point. You know,
I remember they used my first gen Tundra before you guys were here as a vehicle fitment, and they did 4600, 5100, 6112. They used the same truck because we needed to, like Shane said, we needed to confirm all the lift heights on those trucks except for the 4600, which was not designed to lift the truck, but it was pretty involved. I remember that truck was taken apart and put back together a few times to make sure everything got done right.
Yeah.
Of course, there's probably a 4-year gap between 5100s and 6112s because
just in development.
Well, no, because we didn't have 6112s.
Oh, exactly right. Truck. We were still trying to acquire the materials and build
Not
that.
Really, that was just a different manufacturing process,
taking a different avenue.
Something that came up that we were able to apply to.
Yeah, that's true.
To different vehicles.
It did drive around on 5100s for 4 or 5 years before we got 6112s on it.
If you remember, right, they developed that for motorhomes.
Yeah, the big tube, yep.
And then we took that into the light truck segment. We stole it.
Yeah, exactly.
It works.
Yeah.
Works great.
Yeah. So,
but on the Tacoma, we've got 4 different,
ride height adjustables.
4 different shock packages for that. So basically the Tacoma's been floating in around here for a few months, right?
Yep.
Yeah. The owner of it's been super flexible with us, which has made it really easy for us to make progress. And yeah, we're getting almost all the packages done now.
Well, that's what I was going to ask is, so let's say we pile all the 4 packages together for the Tacoma.
And name those off. What are
I have no idea what they are. But what would be, folks are always interested in, how long do you actually take so the fitment process is one thing, then there's the tuning, right? So you guys are managing the fitment process, making sure that the prototype dampers fit up on the chassis, there's no pinch points, there's no binding, they're not too long, they're not too short. How much time, just guesstimate, how much time does that fitment process, before we go into any of the tuning, how much time does that take?
For which series of product, or
got to be more specific.
Let's just say 5100.
I can go through 5100s, right? We have a pretty good baseline off of a 5100 because we can use the factory shocks,
right,
which we base our 4600s off of,
right,
and then we just apply our technology and our tune to the same layout of a 46, like an OE shock,
right.
But then with a 5100, we have to figure out how far can we push the extended length.
Right.
That's to make sure that we don't have any suspension binding. We're not overextending axles
TV
or creating too much angle. Brake lines are good, things of that nature.
So you're testing the limits, right?
We want to make sure at the full extended length that we're not creating any future problems,
right,
for a customer.
So with the 5100, many times you're going beyond what the factory shock is.
That is the goal, is to get as much travel out of that shock as we can.
Yeah.
And so that basis there, whilst when we go into 5100, then we can start to go into higher lift heights. And so the next step is figuring out what those lift heights are.
And that kind of becomes the pattern for all the ride height adjustable stuff, or
to a degree, but that's where you get a big jump, is because when you go into 6112s, now you're talking about making a new spring.
Mm-hmm.
And so it gives us a sense of the motion ratio of that lift, but you're still going to have to once a new spring comes in, work with 6100s.
It's going to change the lift height per snap ring groove now because you're working with a different spring rate.
Yeah. It'll different spring rate and also different spring length.
Mm-hmm.
So your spring length at ride height changes. Now you got to move your circuits.
So everything starts over again.
Yeah, you got to make sure your spring seat clears your axles or
Yep.
clears. So it's a process in that. And then when you get it all the way up to 8112s, then you're just deep in the weeds.
Yeah. It's just like a nightmare of engineering going on, trying to figure out how far we can push it, but yet make the vehicle last 300,000 miles, at that ride height.
Yeah.
What are some big challenges with 8112s?
The challenges. So if we're dealing with finned resis, it's finding a resi location that clears, but also is presentable, something that the customer is not going to feel like.
Now, does engineering come to you with a
presentable.
preset place for the reservoir, or is that up to you guys to find a place for the reservoir?
It's a 50-50, I would say.
50-50. I think we have a general idea where we would like it, but the vehicle design doesn't always say you can do that.
Right.
We just had that happening with the Tacoma.
Right.
Yeah, we've tried 3 different positions
And
of resis.
it finds a way to hit or clunk or something.
It's usually that our main goal is really to be able to keep your OE wheels if you chose to.
Right.
With
and
a
still
slightly
be able
bigger
to run
tire.
it. But that's not always possible.
Right.
With space limitations, it may require aftermarket wheels.
A little bit more offset. Yeah.
And we're trying to minimize that as much as possible, but it's just a reality that
Right.
fitting giant shocks and giant resis.
So those are typically more challenging than, say, a 6112 or a 5100 is getting that fitment done on the 8112s. It takes up a little bit more time.
Yeah, the remote reservoir and the routing of the hoses and the tuning, as well as figuring out shock layout and spring settings, that becomes a much more involved process. And so while we're fairly quick to get a 5100 done, we could probably get that in and out of the shop in 2 weeks for a vehicle.
Right.
When we start getting into 8112s, it's multiple tests and a lot of trial and error. Unfortunately, you can predict it, but then you find out that when you go to a full flex on it, now something's hitting.
Something's hitting, yeah. So I hope everyone caught that. So just to do the development work on 5100, which is a relatively simple damper, just ride height adjustable using the stock spring, is 2 weeks. That's huge. I mean, as far as taking the time to check all the boxes to do something like that, and we always call this our secret sauce in the business. So I want to be careful about how much we reveal to, as our competitors might be watching this, but it's incredible about how much time that we actually spend on each product. Now, so 5100 is 2 week. Imagine something more complicated like an 8112. The time that you guys put into checking that and fitting it, and okay, we got it on. We go to full droop, and now the reservoir hits the brake line by 1/8 of an inch. We got to move that reservoir forward, and now we could go into the process of making an installation manual, which you guys are also involved in as well, right? So.
Right.
All this photo documentation. So when the guy pulls it out of the box and he goes to install it, he's not running blind like you guys had to put it together. So I wanted to ask Miguel real quick. So in the recent past with the development, which one has been the most difficult that you can pick out?
In regards to install or in regards to
install, fitment, just something that really was a nightmare where it was like you brought in a vehicle and you thought it was going to be easy and it just turned out to fight you the whole way.
I mean, in regards to like 8112s, I think the 4Runner KDSS, me and the engineer, they were actually you too, Ryan.
Yeah.
Ryan had to jump in at some point because we were just out of ideas of where to fit that resi.
Right.
And, we want to be presentable to the customers. We want to show off that we have
Right.
a product. But at the same time, we also want it functional. We want to be able to, like Ryan said, clear with
Confidence.
as
Yeah, make
most
sure,
OE,
yeah.
so that the customer doesn't have to buy shocks and then wheels, tires, and
Mhm.
a whole bunch of parts. So yeah, it was like the driver's side was perfectly fine. Actually, it was the opposite.
Did Junior just mention 4Runner?
I
I mean, he's channeling Junior over here. He's talking about he's beating up 4Runner, and he's just got on the show.
Well, I mean, this was the 4Runner, but the KDSS. That's because the sway bar is so different than obviously
Yeah,
your regular sway.
Yeah, and that was with we had already had a product, but as an 8112 plus
non-adjustable
Yeah.
version.
And then the DSA is when we start running into problems to
because it has a
clear the
clicker,
knobs.
so
Yeah, you
it's-
have to be able to get to the knobs to turn them and
Yeah.
all that great stuff. Wow. I mean, we could probably spend 2 hours just talking about this. That's why I wanted to have you guys on is I don't think people understand how much work goes into this process. It's just amazing to me. Now, let's just lightly hit on the tuning side. So now you have
before you go to that, I mean, a little story on that. So we have to develop a bracket that holds a billet reservoir mount with the
fins.
reservoir
Yeah.
with fins. Well, that one didn't have fins to fit in a certain location so the tire doesn't hit it and the suspension doesn't hit it and all this and that. And then they released the bracket. And then our purchasing guy looks at it, and it is like crazy. It's got all kinds of it's like
angles,
this and that. He's just like why, why does this? I mean, seriously, probably has I don't know what you would call that, but it's got
unobtainium as far as machining goes.
It's a sheet metal bracket. It's bent this way. It's got a tab bent this way, and it's like, do you really need this? And he says this to me because we're ordering the components.
Right.
I'm like. There's no other way to this is how a very important part of this shock is going to stay on your car.
Right.
It's absolutely needed.
Yes,
but it's like low volume, on a super high dollar suspension package. And, probably doesn't make any business sense at all. Right. But whatever. So,
but yeah, sometimes that's what me and Ryan have to adapt to, what they're asking us to do, where they want it. Like we were saying, if we want to show off the product, which we had recently with the Tacoma, we wanted it there, visible for the customer, but we also didn't want it to be too exposed. So it was like
damage. Yeah.
So you probably
find
spent
the sweet spot.
The saga of that, because they engineers usually will send me a picture.
Yeah.
You had one wheel and tire package, then you had to buy an aftermarket wheel
to clear it.
Then they're like, oh, we can do an aftermarket wheel that's wider out, and I look at it and it's zero offset and the tires are going to be
sticking way
out. I'm like, I don't think customers
I remember
this.
I remember seeing this in the shop. Yeah.
Some people like it, some people don't like it. So it's
yes.
So it's like it needs an offset wheel, aftermarket wheel, but what's available?
And what do you really want to force the customer to buy an aftermarket wheel? That's adding expense to the package, right?
Well, I mean, you have to in this case because the shocks are gigantic.
Yeah.
But we have to know in our business that a zero offset wheel on a brand new Tacoma is not a good idea.
Yeah, exactly.
So engineers are like, well, let's get the next offset wheel and call that out. I'm like, no, people aren't going to do that. Now you got to do research on what the popular offset is that are out there, what's available out there.
Right. Or what other lift kit manufacturers might be using as far as wheel offset, just so that you're commonized in the industry. You're not, like you said, calling out some weird wheel that you can't even buy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because an engineer will do that, right?
Yeah.
So also, since you mentioned it, behind all the removing product or removing components and testing and documenting photos and all that's some of the stuff that we also do. Sometimes the engineer is so focused on designing the product that they're being asked to. In the meantime, we're over here, searching online, like, okay, what's available, what's what people are doing with the vehicles, what they're, like going from a 5100 package, you kind of know what the customer is doing. But if you go to a 8112, 8100, you know exactly what the customer is trying to do with the vehicle.
Right.
Go off-roading.
Right.
Extreme conditions. Versus a 5100 is more like
So trying to make the whole package work when the customer gets the product, have all the answers for them when they pull it out of the box, not make them search for a wheel. Here's your 3 wheel choices, that might work with this product. And, here's where we recommend that you set the ride height because it protects this part of the vehicle better and things like that. So yeah, that's all part of the design and engineering process that gets left up to you guys.
Yeah, well, we go back and forth on that. Like, as an example, through this Tacoma development, we've had 3 different potential resi locations, and each one was based around, well, the initial one was, how do we keep an OE wheel? And so we check every box and trying every option we can to try to keep that OE wheel. And ultimately, if we have to go with an offset wheel, then what's the bare minimum
Right.
that we can increase their offset
The least modified, yeah.
and get what we need so that we leave as many options to them.
Right.
But even in that process, we tried a new location, and it wasn't as ideal as we'd like.
Mm-hmm.
So then we went with a third option. That process is iterative, and you think you're onto something, and then you find out you got to go back to the drawing.
Yeah. And the other thing is sometimes we're like, we're so close, or it's there, but then you got to consider, out there in the real world, like over here, we're going to be flexing the vehicle or something like that. But then we get to the real world and we go flex it and,
Right.
Tire deflection, bushing deflection,
Yep.
all those kinds of stuff. And that's when you find
A
other
little touch
issues.
point,
So
yep.
you're like, okay, do we want to be there, or do we want to increase the clearances?
Yep.
A static,
Yeah.
right head or flex.
Yeah, because in
So it's
motion,
all-
there's so much more going on than static, right?
Yeah.
I have to share a funny story where you were saying you tried the reservoir in 50 different places. Well, I'm trying to install a Red Arc battery charger on my first gen Tundra, and trying to find a place for that bracket. I kid you not. It was a day off. It was a Sunday, a sunny day. I spent 4 hours with the bracket going, maybe here, maybe here, maybe here, maybe here. It finally, like you guys had to do, I just had to modify either the bracket or, I had to go outside the box to make it fit. So I know that. And I know that being patient and sticking with it till the end, it paid off. I found a good spot for the bracket.
Right.
And I'm sure with the Taco or the Forerunner, you guys found an optimal place where it's going to actually present well and be out of harm's way and work well. But I totally feel for you on that. Maybe here, let's try it here, over there, move it 1/8 of an inch over here.
Mm-hmm.
It's so frustrating when you're that close, right?
Yeah. And then you consider we also with upper control arms, aftermarket upper control arms.
Yeah, how many
how's
different
that
choices
impacting?
are there?
Yeah, so we also try to consider that, like, what is the customer going to throw on their vehicle in combination with this product?
Yeah.
And we try to test as much of that as we can just to have greater confidence in the product.
Yeah, make sure that no matter what they decide to do with it, at least we've probably tried it as well to make sure that, that there's no issues. Yeah, that's just, to me, that's just so amazing. That's why I think our product is so special out there in the market to actually be that confident, having, 2 guys, 3 guys, 4 guys, and plus all the engineering staff, and sometimes Shane and myself wandering around this vehicle, making sure that there's no issues it's just amazing.
It's all that input at the end of the day. Like, you guys help a lot, and most of us are I feel like we're talking a lot of off-road stuff product, but we also have like it's also kind of off-road.
Yeah,
the B6s package.
Yeah, there's also cars.
There's TerraSport packages.
Yeah. I've seen BMWs, I've seen Mercedes, I've seen Porsche in the shop. So it's not just off-road. They do the same fitment program on all the vehicles.
We should talk about TerraSports a little bit. Those seem to be pretty challenging, huh?
Yeah,
those can be very challenging.
Yeah,
and then I'd say probably the biggest barrier is when the manufacturer designed that car, they were not planning on you trying to lift it an inch and a half.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So there's a lot of limitations with the design itself, but we pull it off.
Well,
We
just the
managed
chassis,
to get it
just
done.
the chassis itself, McPherson strut doesn't lend itself well to being lifted, right? And most of those vehicles are using McPherson strut.
Yeah,
so.
there's just so many variations on design too.
Mm-hmm.
Some vehicles don't even have camber adjustments. Some do.
Right.
And we want to guarantee that when we ship a package that you're going to be able to get it in alignment, so you're not going to have tire wear.
Yeah.
You're going to get the wheel travel that you really want out of the vehicle.
Yep.
And the handling characteristics.
Right.
So all that's a factor and very limited in the crossover world.
I remember when I started here, working with some of the early engineers and some of the engineers from Germany, the first edict was do no harm, right? Make sure that you don't make the vehicle worse than when you started, right? Our goal is to make it better. No matter what we do, we have to make it better, right?
Yeah.
We might only be able to lift it or lower it 1/2 inch, but we have to make it actually drive better than it did before. So, and that's difficult when you're working with TerraSport because those cars are pretty darn good out of the box. They just sit too low.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just crazy, super crazy.
I mean, usually the Terra Sports ride quite a bit nicer than
Absolutely.
even if they're lifted. They
The
handle
ones
it right
I've ridden.
nicer.
Yeah. And that's a good segue into the tuning side, which we're just going to touch on lightly today because we have another guest that we're going to bring in for the tuning side. But then after all the work that you guys do, a ride tuning engineer takes over, and now he does his magic on the actual internals of the shock, right?
Yeah.
So just kind of from a glancing view, what does that process entail?
Well, typically it's just driving,
Right?
right? We'll get the car prepped, aligned, and then we'll go out on a ride, and we'll find as many inputs. We have kind of a
loop.
little track,
loop of inputs, and we can duplicate those inputs over and over again, so we have a consistency across our testing, and we'll run it, see what we think it needs. I mean, we're pretty good at taking an initial shot.
Well, that's what I was
at
going
it.
to ask is where does the bass valve or bass line tuning come from?
Well, there's a couple different ways to go about it, but you could dyno the OE shock.
Right, start
That'll
there.
give you a baseline for your 4600.
Mm-hmm.
You can probably make dyno adjustments before you even put it on
Right,
the car
kind
and have it
by
close.
feel, yeah.
But then by the time you're getting up to 6112s or 8112s, we've done that jump so many times that
Get familiar.
we have a good
Yeah.
ballpark of what it's going to take to get this package to that
Depending on
package.
the vehicle suspension setup
Right.
and the weight and all that stuff, we kind of.
But again, you're starting over. You have a product that fits.
Right.
It presents well. Now you have to make it ride right.
Yeah.
so it's
So
almost
then it's-
starting over.
Yeah, and it's ride it,
Change
make a
it.
small change
Yeah.
or a big change depending on how far away you are. Ride it again, change it, and then get more inputs. It's just all about inputs and adjusting it, trying to replicate everything that it could possibly see on the road or off road, so that the customer, we're not going to be surprised that a customer has a bad experience because they did something with the vehicle that we hadn't really seen.
Forecasted.
So
yeah.
you want to see all those inputs and make sure it's good across the board.
Right. And again, that's another person in the department, which we're hoping we'll have on later. If you guys are wanting to come back and watch that episode, it should be quite interesting talking with an actual valving tuning engineer, if you will, or a ride engineer at that point. But the just getting there now, you guys are not taking apart the shocks and rebuilding them. There's a separate team that does that, right?
Yeah, yeah. We have our prototyping technicians, which one of them is also ride and handling.
Okay.
But yeah, they'll disassemble the shocks. They'll evaluate them for any wear, especially when we're designing new products. They'll work with the engineers in changes or small modifications to the shocks as they go. They also do a lot of the machining work.
Yep, the custom stuff that, little changes that need to be made to make it fit right and all that kind of stuff.
Give us the ride-heights that we need.
Exactly.
Insert clips where we need them.
Yep. Yeah, making the fine tunings that can help you guys with the fitment side of things. But I also think that that's neat that we separate that out. So you guys are familiar with how it goes on and off the vehicle, right? But you're not bogged down with taking it back over to the other shop, taking it apart, putting it back together. They're familiar with the internals. You guys are familiar with the externals, and it kind of helps speed the process up, and it keeps everybody focused on the task at hand, right? Your job's to get it on and off the car, get it over to him, and he can make the valving changes, get it back on, go ride it again. It's just amazing.
I think that's one of the things I really enjoy about the job is that our department is throughout the R&D is so cross-functional.
Right.
From the prototypers or our CNC machinists, our department, and
Everybody
ride
helps.
tuning engineers. Then we're working with engineers and product managers and project managers constantly as we go through this process. So we get a lot of different input, lots of good minds, and it's really enjoyable process.
Yeah.
Sometimes challenging.
Yeah. For me, it's it's always fun to come back to the shop here and see what you guys are working on, talk to you, get a feel for what's up with new vehicles and things like that. It keeps me on the cutting edge of what happens in our industry. Is to come back and see what you guys are working on and how the vehicles change over the years and how they, the old vehicles, how they all kind of stay the same basically, right?
Yeah.
Just kind of recycle old technology onto the new vehicles. But it's super interesting. And I hope that people that watch this or listen to this really understand how much work goes into this process. Now, as we kind of wind down here, not only wind down with podcasts, but also wind down for the year, right?
Oh.
Christmas is coming, New Year's is coming. I hear that you're working on a Sprinter van project. So
Yeah.
I want to hear a little bit about this project.
I made a decision to buy a boat.
Which is a hole in the water you dump money into, right?
No, but I love it. Yeah, I got an old T1N Sprinter from a friend who retired, and he had used it for his electrical business or carpentry business for a long time. And when he retired, he didn't need it. So I picked it up for a good price and low mileage at 100, 110, 120,000 miles. And then the work began.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of at that point over our break here, holidays. I'm going to finally get the exterior finished up with some Raptor liner paint on it.
So you're building this as like a camper van platform then?
Yeah, essentially a camper van, adventure van. I'm not going deep into the weeds of making it basically a rolling RV. I like that process, but for my needs, it doesn't really suit my particular needs.
Right.
And that's kind of the fun aspect of a Sprinter, is that there are so many variations in how you can
Oh yeah.
how you can work
The
with
sky's the limit on
long-
those things. Yeah.
As long as it fits your needs, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
essentials.
Yeah,
and
you're building it to your unique.
Absolutely. I've searched some
approach.
websites just looking for things for my vehicles, and once you get into the van life
Oh, yeah.
segment of products, it just goes nuts, man. You can find
great.
anything you want for a van. It's just all kinds of stuff for the cargo area, for the driver's area, to make it taller, shorter, hold more, hold less. And in the hold more, hold less thing, have you tried the BILSTEIN camper van products on the Sprinter?
I have, well, my particular year doesn't offer the camper van option.
Okay,
But I have tried our B4s and our B6s,
right.
and both product were a huge improvement.
All right.
Actually, technically, our B4s are the original equipment, so I had
All right, that's right.
I had a direct comparison between
Right.
the original product after 120,000 miles, our OE product, and then putting the B6s on. I love those B6s.
Nice.
on the vehicle.
Now, is this van lifted at all?
No, it is not lifted.
Are you planning on doing that?
I do not plan to do that for those vehicles in particular, because this is the first gen T1N Sprinter, ended in 2006. There's only really one lift kit on the market, and it's more of a body and engine lift than it is a suspension lift.
I don't want that.
Yeah.
One advantage is you get to put 33-inch tires on it, but I don't. For my particular needs, I didn't want bigger, heavier tires.
Right.
Yeah.
I do run all terrains on the OE wheels, and I've
Right.
figured out my maximum tire size.
So it fits,
So.
it works, it fits. And from the guy who does that every day for a living, you know, you can take solace in that, knowing that it's not going to have any rubbing issues, stuff
And
like that.
It's an open diff rear wheel drive, and I had it through Anza Borrego Desert for 3-4 days last month
Right.
doing tracking stuff. and
Right.
It'll go through the washes and the sand and
Just air
everywhere
down
else.
the tires a little bit and
I didn't even air it down.
yeah. Yeah.
I
Just
mean,
mob
most
it.
of the
yeah. Just mob it.
Oh,
Launch it.
yeah. I mean, the whole group. There's several people out there with 4x4s, and I'm just like, I'll get there.
Yeah.
I won't get there fast,
Yeah.
but I'll get there.
Give me a minute. I'll get there. Yeah. I remember our Sprinter van, which isn't the same as yours, but it has been to Moab a few times, and I've seen it places the Sprinter van probably hasn't been designed to go. So they are pretty capable trucks.
I've seen Sprinter vans pretty far out in the middle of nowhere.
Just where you don't expect to see them. Yeah.
Exactly. And
But to talk to the camper van real quick, on our vehicle, I've installed the camper vans on ours. And we're still currently running the Camper Advanced
on
series
the
on our
company truck.
on our company truck. Really awesome technology. Ride quality is really good. I would say if there's any caveat to the camper line versus our B6 line, the main detail is it is designed for a lot of load.
Right.
all
That's
the
the
time.
Dampmatic version, right?
Yeah, like our Dampmatic version or even our camper version, they run best when you've got, a good chunk of your payload already taken up with
Yeah.
equipment in the vehicle.
The stuff
all
that
the time.
stays in it, right?
Yeah, your baseline payload
Right.
should be quite about half, I would guess, of
Right.
the full payload of the vehicle.
Basically an RV. Class
Yeah.
B.
RV.
Yeah, and that's
Close to
kind of what it says in the name, right? It doesn't say unloaded Sprinter van shock. It says camper van shock, right? So yeah, it makes sense that if you're building a rig like that you're going to have some amount of static load, right? There's going to be gear and food and stuff that you take in and out, but most of the time the truck's going to stay loaded, like you're going to go camping most of the time.
Yeah. You know, you've got cabinets, you've got insulation.
Yeah,
You've got a bed.
Yeah, that you can't take in and out. So I think that was their target when they designed that product, was for the person that's going to leave it loaded, right?
Yeah.
And I haven't driven, well, I drove ours towing a trailer and slightly loaded, and it felt really, really, really good. So I think it was, like you said, designed, if we had all the show gear in the back like it normally has, it would have even driven better.
Yeah.
But
So that's the trade-off that you get there. Is but even unloaded, it does run well. It's just you're going to see your best performance if you're really loading it the way it was intended.
Right, and that makes sense to me. I mean, why offer a specific camper van product when we have the 3 other versions for the unloaded?
Yeah.
The unloaded truck. Now, go ahead.
Yeah, Miguel, let's hear about your.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Your latest
just
toy.
Recently had a little fun down in Baja. So how did that go?
Yeah, for the Baja 1000, I was thankfully invited by the marketing team to help out there, work in the booth for a couple of days during the tech days. And then during race day, Nathan with the motorsports team, he also invited me to run with them, and we were going to kind of help out Chase, which we ended up helping Doug Mittag, Polaris Razor, sorry. So yeah, that went well. It was fun, like always. I'm a big lover of Baja. So yeah, it's great talking to people, at the booth, seeing what their inputs are. Like, it's always, you go down there and they see the BILSTEIN brand. It's like, oh man, like, you guys are huge, and I'm running these on my truck, my Chase truck. It's great.
They're a very loyal following.
Yeah.
The group down there, they really love the brand, and we've been down there so long that, like you said, they come running up and the kids want stickers. They all know the brand.
That's always thing.
Yeah,
stickers.
it's always fun going down there. Now, you're more than just helping out the marketing department. I've seen your truck in the parking lot, so that's not a normal truck, right? So tell us a little bit about that rig.
It is a normal truck. I try to keep it as normal as possible, for the purpose of being reliable when I'm out there.
Right.
I do go to Baja a lot. I try to be really, helping other people that are out there, friends, or people that I meet along the way, being at these events. And I want to be able to offer my help. At some point, they've called me the Baja Angel.
Right.
Because I've been there in the middle of nowhere where somebody needs something.
Broken down, yeah.
And all of a sudden, well, guess what? I'm always carrying my tools.
Yep.
And
Air compressor.
Or
tire patch
air
kits,
tanks. Yeah. Stuff like that.
Well, let's hear about your latest vehicle acquisition and what's on it. What you're.
I mean, I've had it for a while, and I actually bought you're talking about the truck, obviously.
The Can-Am.
Oh, the Can-Am.
Yeah.
Oh, that was just a very impulsive purchase.
As most of them are.
Yeah.
How can you not be impulsive about a Can-Am?
Yeah. I mean, I start seeing all this UTV stuff growing and, seeing them mostly everywhere. They're pretty reliable at some point. It's definitely cheaper than what you would call it pre-runner that I have.
A lot cheaper.
A
Yeah.
lot cheaper. It kind of sucks that here in California you can't drive them around like other states, but
not street legal here yet.
Long story short, I took a trip to Arizona because a guy was going through some rough stuff, and he decided to sell it. I took the opportunity. Next thing you know, we're having a BILSTEIN Black Hawk event, and that went great, by the way. So I got to compare the OE package shocks on my Can-Am,
Right.
and the Black Hawks, which we used. And yeah, that's another huge thing right now, the Black Hawk shocks.
Yeah.
And I think Garrett's been putting some stuff up about that. The event itself, it's probably, some of it's been up and people can watch it.
Yeah. So I got to put those truck on my vehicle as part of testing / reward for helping out with the event, and I'm loving it. I love it. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be, I mean, those things, I think Shane remembers one of those finished in the top 8 in Baja.
Oh, a UTV.
Yeah.
UTV top 8, yeah.
So
they're getting really fast now.
Yeah, they're getting really fast, reliable. They're going to be the vehicle, I think, going
Eventually,
forward. Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice to see the big trucks and all that stuff, but in the real world, people are trying to keep everything on a
on a budget. Yeah.
budget.
I mean, why spend $1 million on a trophy truck when you can spend $40,000 on a Can-Am?
And almost go as fast.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have that 1,000 horsepower engine.
Yeah.
What are some of your experiences with the Blackhawks on your Can-Am? Like, how has it improved?
Improved wise, just the last couple of trips that I was out there, I've had a few moments where, I'll let my girl drive or I'll be driving and we're like, oh shoot, like we're not supposed to go through here this fast, and it would just eat those.
Yeah.
Like either it's a rock or a cliff or something. We're like, okay, I wasn't expecting that, but
We made it.
good thing we have the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and other friends that are actually running those. One of them is a racer. He races a Class 11. He put those on his. That time he was following me. Obviously, he's following my dust. We went through the same stuff. He's like, dude, like
We lived.
what was that? Yes, yeah. He had mine's a 2-door. He has a 4-door, and we were just mobbing. And it's like all of a sudden, it's like, whoa, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
It's amazing the miles
Yeah.
you can click off down in our local deserts.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
And it's totally comfortable.
I've had the same experience with it at Camp Razor. We actually had not a Can-Am, but a Razor out there, and I was amazed at, you watch these cars coming at you over those big whoops on the sand highway, and they're completely out of control. They're
All over the
sidestepping.
place.
Yeah, they're sidestepping 5 feet in either direction off every whoop, and we're just going in a straight line, perfectly safe and stable inside the car. And that's a lot of the feedback that you got at the event too, is that the car just felt so much safer, and you could go so much faster than on the stock dampers.
Yeah.
it's a good package, great product that I know it was before my time. Obviously, like I said, being here for a year, but I've heard stories of how the whole process went and the failures and all the R&D that went through, and it's amazing. I mean,
Yeah, to end up where we're at with a product like
Yeah.
that is super amazing.
Yeah, you thought it's a lightweight car, it's a UTV, it'd be pretty easy, but there was a lot to developing a shock for that.
It was a long process. Ryan was a part of a lot of it as well, and
Yeah.
very,
Well, yeah, and we had some processes already in place, like our JCO, RCO concepts.
Mhm.
But as we went down that, like we had the dual
Change,
speed adjusters. Now we're developing dual speed adjusters, larger
Rebound adjusters.
larger shock bodies.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we were going to aluminum bodies
All
at that time.
Yeah.
Everything aluminum.
So we were making a lot of changes all at once that
Yeah.
we were trying to integrate together.
Yeah, and that makes the process. It makes you have to check the boxes much faster. Sometimes details get overlooked, and so everybody's got to work together if you're doing that fast to market type approach. So.
And during that time, we were racing with Doug Matag,
Yep.
who's an absolute animal.
Yeah.
And he
Short course
he
racer.
was doing all the hardcore testing.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, Ryan, you mentioned earlier that there was a process people could go through to let us use their vehicles for development. Now, folks are always interested in being a part of our development program. So what's the customer's path to get involved in that?
All right. Well, we have a vehicle submission page, and if you're in the Southern California region or are willing to travel to Southern California region, I keep a list on that page. We'll drop the link at the bottom, and just go to that page, and it describes how we run our process, providing you with a vehicle, what kind of product we can offer, as well as all the vehicles we're currently looking for. And if you submit your vehicle, I'll be in touch with you as soon as we're in need of it, and we'll get it in here. And in exchange, we offer gift cards for the time of loaning us the vehicle if you're not interested in product. But if you are interested in product, then we do our best to get you usually a 6112 type package. In some circumstances, you do better, but it depends on the particular application and our design goals.
Okay, so they just go to that link, they submit their vehicle and their information. You'll get back to them on a phone or
yeah, usually
email?
by email or phone, depending on the situation. But yeah, if you have what we're looking for and I keep that list updated, then I'll be in touch with you.
Perfect. So people that want to be involved in BILSTEIN's R&D process, check that link out and see if we're looking for your vehicle. And that goes back to why we have you guys on the show today, is that we want to instill a confidence in our customers that two guys sitting at this table spent a lot of time engineering, working on that product, making sure it's going to work the best it can work on your car.
And using the product.
Yeah, yeah. And we all use the product, right? So that's something that's always impressed me about this company and why I've stayed so long, is that we don't really have to continue to brag about it. Like when I worked at tech department, people would call me and say, I'm worried that the shock's not going to fit. And I'm all, trust me, it's going to fit and it's going to work the way we designed it, because we have a whole team of people that's all they do. Yeah. And they're not just doing it as a job. They do it for a living. They live the life, right? You build your van, you go down and run around in Baja. Shane and I do our little off-road camping trip. So we're all involved in something that we do for fun as well. You know, our job is also what we do for fun.
Hobby.
Yeah, which is good and bad in some ways. But well, guys, thanks for taking time out of your day. I know that Tacoma's calling your name back there. You got to get that done before holiday break. So we'll let you guys get back at it. Thank you for coming on the show so much, for taking time out of your day. It was good to really understand that process and listen to how hard you guys have to work every day to get that done. Just thank you, and we'll see you all soon again on Shock Talk.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.